Hi, everyone. Welcome to KK's Quilt Studio. This is Marilyn. I shared this design on my Art and Stitch Facebook group the other day, promising a live session about how to create it. I got a question from one of our members who wanted to know how to do something fancy like this, if she could possibly do it in Art and Stitch. And I said, well, of course, yes, you can. You can add lots of fun things to your quilting. And this is an embroidery design. You can sew it out on your embroidery uh, machine using Art and Stitch base, which comes with your quilting system. Art and Stitch will do either quilting design or embroidery design. It's just a wonderfully fun program, and I want to show you how to get the most fun out of it. So I've been seeing a lot of these designs around the internet, mostly with letters. And well, since it's March and I'm a wee bit Irish, I thought we'd do a lovely little shamrock. And so I did this little lacy design around a applique, if you will, and you can create this, yes, with Art and Stitch base. Now you'll notice that I have Art and Stitch Plus. I've got the third toolbar over here, so I have the embroidery module that is an extra add-on, but you can certainly do it. I'm going to use just the first two toolbars here to create this lovely design, which is what Art and Stitch base consists of. So we're going to learn how to create this fun lacy edge motif and how to create an applique design. And then I got a little bit more fancy and I created some inner designs that you could put fabric behind this and sew it out just as easily. So let's get started on how to create your own motif. Motifs, if you will, are you can draw a line or you can use motifs to fill a closed shape. So if I have that square, I go over here to the motif fill, and there is the design from over here on properties. There's a drop down menu, and there are oodles and oodles and oodles and oodles of different patterns that you can apply to your lines or your use as a fill for your closed shape. So if I apply a fill or a motif to this line, you'll see there the default one came in, but of course you can change it to something else just like that. Okay, well that's not enough patterns, I guess. So let's create our own. I haven't found a fun little scallop lacy motif. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn on my grid, and I'm going to zoom in on that. You can use your magnifying glass over on the toolbar. I'm using the navigator box, which you can drag around. If you don't see your navigator box, just hit N for navigator on the keyboard, on your keyboard, so you can navigate around your workspace. So we are going to use to create our little scallop design. We're going to start with the 3-point arc tool. So I'm going to click on that. You'll see that my cursor is changed to a little plus sign, and I'm going to line up with my grid. I'm going to start here with one click. And as with creating an edge to edge quilting design, I want to stay on the same horizontal, start and end on the same horizontal plane. So 3-point arc, my second click will be about there. And my third, remember I said it's like a dance. On the third click, the third step, you get a arc. Okay, at this point, I'm going to change to a line, or you can hit L on your keyboard if you want to drag over a little guideline to give you the approximate center of your design. I'm going to start here and click and out to the edge and click back, click up, back, and up. And if you wanted to um, make these a little more exact, you could create a grid with some lines. I'm just doing a real quick mock-up here today to show you how this is done. Okay, I'm going to go back to my starting point and get as close as I can. Click there. I'm going to go back to my 3-point arc tool because I wanted to add a little lacy scalloped edge to this design to make it extra fancy. So we'll do another midpoint about there, there, there. And like I said, I took a little bit more time with the one that I created. It's a little bit more exact. Okay, I'm going to go back to my line tool. Again, you can hit L for line on the keyboard. And I'm going to drop my last point, which is going to be a little connector right there on the line. So now I'm done. There is my magic little wheel. I am going to now drag, let's drag another guideline down here to the bottom. Going to go to my little magnifying glass because I want to zoom in just a little bit tighter. I'm going to go to my reshape tool up here so I can see the nodes that I created. These all look pretty good. They don't need to be exactly on top of each other. I'm going to bring this one down, and I am going to make sure that everything lines up. So I'm going to right click on my toolbar and I'm going to say snap to guidelines. Okay. I'm going to go up and snap that point to that guideline. That one looks good. It's starting there. All those points are good on that line. I'm happy with that. Right click again. I'm going to turn that off while I do some more editing. I'll bring this one down and bring this one up a little bit over. Okay, looks good. Maybe I could bring that one in a little bit tighter. Okay, you can fiddle with it and make things. Remember, this is going to be really tiny, and you probably won't be able to see if this is off by a lot. So, okay, looks good. Let's click off the design. Now we're going to use something I don't think you probably used before. It's called the Stitch Edit tool. And that is what we need in order to create our motif. And oh, I forgot a step. Let's go back to our select tool. Let's select that design. Let's apply stitches because we can't create a motif without applying stitches. Now that looks a little wonky, but our design is really, really small. If you look up here, we're like 0.54 by 0.26. We've created a really tiny design. We can change the stitch length over here in properties, and I want this to stitch fairly daintily. So I'm going to say, let's go to 1.5. My key is not working. There we go. Okay. And then anytime you make changes over here on the property screen, we want to click apply. That looks a little bit better, and your embroidery machine will adjust to it. It won't be quite this blocky. We've got some extra little doodobs down here that if I click off, you'll see these are tie-ins and tie-offs, and we don't want those on our design. So let's select that design again to bring up our properties screen. Oh, all right, let's bring up our properties screen and let's go to commands and let's turn off those because we don't want that every time it repeats a motif. We don't want it to tie in and tie off at each one. So we're going to turn those off and click apply. So now those have gone away. All right. And now we're going back to that stitch edit tool. You'll see I have another toolbar up here, but we don't need to do anything but to click, hold down our left mouse key, drag across so we get a little selection box. Then release your mouse key and you'll see all these little dots. They're not nodes, they are stitches, if you will. So with that, we're going to go up to tools. We're going to create a motif pattern editor, save motif pattern. There's a preview of what our design is going to look like as a fill. And we'll say save. And I'm going to go down. I've already created one of these. I'm just going to save over it with the same name. And I like to use my initials, KK, and whatever. You see, I have quite a few KKs under here. These are all different designs that I have selected or created. And you'll notice that these are PFL files. I know you're not familiar with that particular file extension, but it is a motif pattern so that Art and Stitch recognizes it. It won't be available to use in other programs outside of Art and Stitch. So we're saving a motif pattern and I'm going to click save. Yes, it already exists. We're going to save over it. So now we have created our first part of our design and I'm going to zoom out and just test it. So I'm going to create a circle or an oval, if you will, and then apply a motif to it. Go down the list. My KKs, my ones I designed, will be at the bottom, and it will be in purple, signifying that these are ones that I've created. And click 1, 2, 3 and apply. And there we are. Looks good. I'm happy with that. So we're ready to move on to creating our design. Now that we've created the motif design, I want to talk about actually saving this. So this design that I created, this little lacey scallop, is only accessible to me in Art and Stitch on this computer. If I have another computer that I want to use this motif on, I need to save it here and open it on my other, open it and save it to my other Art and Stitch software on my other computer. So I can do that in one of two ways. If you go up here to the toolbar or to the tools, there is a way to back up user files. So when you install Art and Stitch on your computer at the beginning, Art and Stitch creates a folder in your documents file. In your documents folder, creates another Art and Stitch folder that's called Art and Stitch backup files. So you could click on this and create a backup user file folder, and I'll show you what's contained in that. So anything you create to use in this Art and Stitch software can be shared in another computer or tablet. Um, so that they're the same. So if you create shapes that you save to your library, or store other design files in your library, and any of the motifs you create, they can be used in another application of Art and Stitch. So that's one way. I like to go ahead and save this file. So I will go File, Save As, and I will go to my folder, and I've been using it here, the motif patterns. Now, if I go up one file, this is the folder that you're looking for in your documents folder, Art and Stitch Design Backups. You see that you can create other items for your Art and Stitch program, Design on Path, fancy patterns. These are embroidery patterns. Here's your folder for motif patterns, shapes that you've created. So I like to create my own files within my folders. And this is actually a file linked to my cloud. So whatever I save here on my computer, I can open up on other computers that I use. So I would go into motif patterns, and I called this one KK123, and then I would go ahead and save that. So I'm overwriting the file that I already have in the system. Okay. With that being said, that's all we need to create for this design, because there wasn't a scallop design like this in our motif design. So we've created something new. So here is basically what I am trying to achieve. And I'm going to show you how I created this using shapes in the folder, but this is going to be what my design is ultimately going to look like. So let's go ahead and open a new file. You see again, it opens in the embroidery mode because we are actually creating a embroidery design for this exercise, if you will. I went to the library. In the library, there's all kinds of designs and shapes and artwork that will help you get started. So if you use this little drop down menu, I think actually I got my heart design from the block patterns. There's a simple heart shape in here, but there are more hearts in the shapes folder. And I think I grabbed this one when I was demonstrating. So here is the heart that I'm going to use. So this is the first part of my shamrock design. So I'm going to take 3 hearts and create um, a shamrock shape. And this is the easy peasy way of doing this. So I'm going to align that to my grid line. And then I'm going to copy or Control C, Control V on your keyboard. Everybody knows how to do that. And then I'm going to grab hold of that little X. You see that? When I have the heart selected, that little X marks the center of my design, or what would be my rotation point. I'm going to hold down my Alt key on my keyboard, and there is a little X sign that shows up, and I'm going to move it to that bottom of the heart. You see it kind of jump down there and let go. That is my rotation point. And I've moved my rotation point from the center down here. So then I'm going to go to either corner, this one or that one. It doesn't matter. You see when I hover over that little round dot, um, I get that little rotational arrows. So I've done that one. I'm going to paste another heart. You'll see that my rotation point has stayed down there. I'm going to rotate this one to the right. Okay, now I have 3 hearts. I'm going to click, hold down my left mouse key, and drag a selection box around all 3. I'm going to right click, go down to transform artwork, and I'm going to unite. So there is the beginning of my shamrock design. Now it looks a little different from that one because I use different hearts, but same. And you can change the hearts around if you like. You can actually click on this one and make it, let's go up here and make it a little taller, whatever you like to do. But you still have to select them all, right click, transform artwork, and unite. Okay. If you like that shape, you like the other one, you play with it. It's your design. Make it how you want to make it. So I am going to take this design now. You'll notice my sequence view. I've got one piece of artwork. I am going to copy and paste again. So now I have 3 designs. The first one, I am going to file, export, and I am going to call this Shammer, and I am going to use my drop down menu. So I will take this and export as an SVG or as a Brother scan and cut file. I can do either or. So I'm saving vector artwork for my cutting machine. So if I have a Cricut or a silhouette, I need an SVG for Brother. I like to use the FCM because it maintains the size. So you'll just click save, and then your artwork is saved. Okay, the next one, I'm going to change color, and I am going to assign my motif. So it gives me that default one, but I just have to go down the list to the purple files that are mine. And actually this is the one I just built, but there are a couple other here. And this is actually the one I used for the other design. It's a little bit smaller. If you want to change the pattern size, you can change it here. I could change this to 13 and then just click apply. It makes it a little bit bigger. Play around with it. Get it to the size you want, but be careful. Notice that if I zoom in here, if you make it bigger, you've got a curve here and you're trying to set it on a curve, but your scallop design is not curved, and it does not curve to follow the line. So this is one unit of the design, and it connects on a curve, but it doesn't actually curve the motif design itself. So just an important note for you to be aware of. Okay, so we've got the first part of our design. That's ready. So now let's go back to our sequence view, and we're going to go to this next piece that we've created. And I'm going to go to the applique tool and click, and there we've set our applique. Now, if there are things you want to change, now it defaults to an applique um, with a satin final stitch. If you want to change it to something else when you create an applique, know that you can. You have the choices here of a blanket or another motif stitch. So we could actually finish this with some kind of motif stitch if that were the case. You can change it to a blanket stitch. You can also change the width of that satin stitch. You can add fabric, which is what I did for the preview of the design. So just you can, these are the fabrics that come with Art and Stitch. There were the polka dots. Or you can navigate to somewhere on your computer that you have fabric swatches stored. You just go to add and locate where you have the other images of your fabric stored. I'm just going to click OK, um, use what's in the program. It doesn't matter as far as the stitch out. It's just an added feature that you can kind of see what's there. One other question I had was if I use the blanket stitch, um, do the blanket stitch and apply, and you'll see that even though I'm using the blanket stitch, um, there, and this one's yellow, so it's hard to see, but there are other stitches here, like the tack down stitch is a zigzag, and I can't make out my blanket stitch very well if I've got that zigzag. So if you were to go to the Extra tab here under Properties, you can change that zigzag to a run stitch. Okay, that makes it a little better, but I've still got the run stitch. Now, you know, in an applique, you have a placement stitch, a tack down stitch, and then you have the regular stitch. So if I were to go here and take a look at the sequence view, there's three different colors. The placement stitch, that purple, would be under your fabric. Place the fabric on top of that placement stitch. But then I have that red uh, placement stitch that's going to show up, or more, you'd use the same color, but I'd have that stitching show up with my placement stitch. There is, under Properties, just get rid of that tack down stitch. Okay, if you're using heat and bond, I used on mine, there's no need really for the tack down stitch. Place it over the placement stitch and then go ahead and stitch down. Now I'm getting these long, weird stitches. And if I went here, I should be able to grab those stitches and correct those. They kind of look like little wild hairs. So remember, we used this button when we created our motif. And now we can kind of use this to fix our applique or blanket stitch, as it were. Okay, there's a couple in there. But move it around till it's how you like. and it'll look a little bit better. Okay. So now looks like we missed one more there, but you get the idea. You can go in and fix those placement stitches, or those little stitches, weird wild hairs caused by that corner. So at this point, we're ready to stitch it out, be it with a blanket stitch or with our um, satin stitch. And I'm going to share some photos of what I did. So here is where I put my fabric. I put heat and bond. I have heat and bond featherweight, and I cut it out on my using my Cricut machine. Um, when you bring in the design to Cricut, I don't know what the problem is. I have that problem with bringing in any kind of vector artwork. I need to double check the sizes. So double check what size you have in the program, check your artwork measurements, and make sure that your design, your vector graphics of this is the same when you get into um, Cricut and when you get to cut out your fabric, because if you don't have the right size shamrock, all bets are off, right? So here I'm sewing it out on my sewing machine. This is about an 8x8 hoop. I think the design is about a 5x6 pattern, the one I created. So I'm doing that. That first run is that lacy motif. And then now I'm doing my placement guide, which I didn't really need the placement stitching because there's a pretty good outline with the motif, but we did it. I did it anyway. And then here I have taken my hoop out, put my fabric on, and applied my iron to it to stick down my design. And then there's a close up of the zigzag, the tack down stitch, if you will, before I went to do my final satin stitches. So I did notice on mine, I had a little bit of funkiness going on in the corner, and I could have um, made that better. But this was just an example of something, and trying to help you learn how to do this. And yours may turn out a little bit different, but I've showed you um, how to correct and change things with your design. So let's go back to art and stitch. So I thought that was kind of a fun exercise, and I liked doing it. But then I got to thinking before I did this video that maybe I would like to make the design a little bit fancier, do some inside stitching. So I came up with this. You could, of course, and I have this one, which is the final result. Um, you could go in with your drawing tools and draw a heart shape, or kind of come in around the design. But I thought, well, there's got to be an easier way to do that. But what we want to do is do an outer fill like I showed on the other one. So you could do something here with the drawing tools. But what I did was to go back to my shapes, get that heart, and actually, no, I didn't. Let's try to remember what I did. What I actually did was went back to the sequence view, and I'm looking for that artwork. Um, see if I have some artwork left. We'll take this one, and change it back to artwork. I can do that. Stitches. Can I change it back? Okay. Let's copy and paste that and change that one. No, I'm not able to change that back to artwork. But let's go back to our other design here. I did have artwork there. I did save it there. Okay, so um, that was the one I saved from my cutting file. What I did was go into properties, transform, and I think I took that down to about 65%. You might have to experiment with this. Don't worry, you have an undo button, so you can try 80, 75, 65. That's kind of how I went. And then if I didn't like it, I just clicked undo. So if we click apply, and I'm going to move that to the top. Okay, I'll turn these off. Let me get rid of the fabric. That's probably what's turning us. Go here, properties. Now I'm having problems because I've played around with these files too much. Let's copy paste. There it is on top. Okay. So now I move that down here and let's bring this one down. And I think there might be a problem with my with the zoom that I can't bring this in. Let's see if we can create this one. Copy, paste. There. Now back up to artwork. Now let's bring this one down. If I select this one, hold down the control key and select that one. So I have the two pieces and I'm going to go to transform artwork. And this time we're going to exclude. Remember, we used weld last time. So that gives me, it's hard to see the one here on the outer bounds. That gives me an area that I can fill. You can kind of see it here in the sequence view. So if I were to go here to Motif fill, now you'll see I get stitching. Now I can go under the motifs pattern and let me see. Oh, where was this one I used? There, I think it's this one, the EMB black work. If I can drag this out wider. But I can't read the exact one. It's this one, EMB black work with 02, I think. Okay. I need to play around with the pattern size. Let's go 14. I've got some strangeness here going on. But just play with the pattern size until you get rid of these. Um, this one, came out pretty good when I did that. But that was essentially how I did. I used the original artwork and then created a duplicate, shrunk it down to 65%, did transform, applique, and um, exclude. So that gives me an outside area to fill. So that would fill sew around my fabric and give it a little bit more fancy effect. And when I turn on the 3D, you see it's really kind of a nice design. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember that the designs you're creating here, they can be brought in from other programs that you can't use other program files because that remember it was an ELF extension. That is a native format for Art and Stitch only and not other programs, other embroidery programs have different files or file extensions. So, but I've brought um, motif patterns in from my sewing machine. I just watched how they stitched out on my sewing machine and then brought them into Art and Stitch by drawing them, just like we did um, for the little scallop here. So I saw a scallop and I thought, yeah, I can draw something like that. And now it's in my permanent library. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any other questions, just ask them. I'm always happy to create fun things, and um, I hope that it gets your creative juices going. I hope that you'll try this exercise and maybe post something in the Facebook group or share with my Facebook store page. And until next time, I wish you all happy quilting and happy designing. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.